What up, is Marcus Dynasty with Asbury DeAndre signed jersey. All we have to do is hit 2K and give it away to one of you subscribers. It's for free. So everyone always comes to the question, which combine statistics actually matter? We just watched through a bunch of different wide receivers, rookie wide receivers, go through the NFL combine, and we see these flashing 40s, these guys that can jump over 40 inches, these huge broad jumps, but what actually matters? It's an important question. And we're going to first go through the 40-yard dash, but there's a chart up here, and you're going to see a cutaway of it as well. And Pro Football Focus came up with two different statistics. Of course, you have the WAR, which is a wins above replacement. If you want that to be high, of course, a high wins above replacement doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be amazing at fantasy football. It just means they're a really good performer on the field, which usually means that they're going to be good at fantasy football. And then you see draft capital as well. Where do NFL teams, what makes them attracted to some of these players? We're going to go through the 40-yard dash first because it is the most important thing to boost up your draft capital. And the question is, does 40-yard dash matter in general? And there are players like Devontae Adams, mid 4.5. There's Cooper Kupp in his 4.6s. Deebo Samuel, even 4.48. And there's plenty of other receivers that have been super slow, or not super slow, but below average. And then there's the receivers like Ross and Henry Ruggs and all these different other wide receivers that have been lightning quick and, of course, have not produced at the NFL level. But that is putting people into different boxes that may be incorrectly because 40-yard dash does do one thing. For me, it's not super important per se if a player runs a 4.35 versus a 4.50. Like, that doesn't matter to me, but it matters to the NFL draft GMs and the head coaches. So what it will ultimately do is move some of these players from maybe a third round to a second round, a fourth round to a third round. And we know if the earlier you get drafted, draft capital is the king of almost any statistic analytically wise. And I did a video last year on it right around this time and I'll probably have to redo another one about how draft capital is the king. And if you are getting moved up in the draft, that is going to give you a better chance to perform fantasy football wise. So it's like one thing leads to another thing, which leads to another thing, which leads to another thing. So in general, a high 40-yard dash will lead to a better chance of being drafted higher. And that higher level of being drafted is going to give you a better chance of more playing time, which is going to give you a better chance of fantasy football production historically. And that's all that we matter is if you have better chances of being a higher fantasy football producer, then that's going to matter. What matters to, I guess, fantasy football owners or the rookie, when we're going into rookie drafts, is which things do we want to look at that are associated with wins above replacement, which equals fantasy football production. And we want to see big hand size. So like Treylon Burks has big hands. There's other wide receivers too in the past that have had big hands, but big hands usually mean that you have a guy that can secure and grab those contested catches, and they usually can snag the ball out of the air a little bit easier versus trying to catch it into their body. We also have that 10-yard burst, which is a very important thing for not only draft capital, which it shows that it's high for NFL GMs and coaches, but we also want to see that in wins above replacement matter too. So if you have that initial first 10-yard burst, that just means that you have that explosiveness. You have that better chance for production at the NFL level. Arm length and vertical, which kind of go hand in hand. Again, wide receiver position is a very contested place to be, which if you see one of the things that it says is height is actually doesn't really matter what much. Which there's wide receivers that are 5'10". There's Tyreek Hill who's like 5'6", 5'7", maybe 5'7". You have Rondale Moore who's miniature, and then you have wide receivers that are 6'4", 6'5". And so the height doesn't really matter across the board as much, but if you have a really high vertical and really long arm length, usually arm length is going to be longer on players that have a taller frame, but that's not always the case. There are plenty of occasions where you have a receiver that has maybe a 6-foot wingspan and they're 5'9", 5'10". I always say the wingspan of somebody, I'm 5'9 3/4, we're going to call myself 5'10". My wingspan is almost 5'10". And usually your wingspan, which is, of course, arm to arm, so tip to tip, that is supposed to be about the length of your height and how tall you are. there are plenty of people, especially in the basketball realm, you'll see these guys that are 6'8", and they have like a 7'5" wingspan. It's just ridiculous. People are made differently. They definitely are. And then there's other people, like maybe you'll see out in the community that are like 6'4", and they have like shorter arms, like dinosaur arms. So that is what we're looking for. The 40-yard dash means a little bit, is what ultimately the conclusions are. It means a little bit towards that draft capital like we mentioned. But the things I am still looking at is that burst. I'm looking at kind of the overall, okay, are they quick in that short spaces? 3-cone drill, which is surprising that it is not as high as it normally is. It's more valuable for running backs, which I mentioned last year. We'll have to talk about that. We'll get through those running backs. The next couple videos here, we're going to be talking more about what the running backs are doing in the NFL Combine, the other positions as well. I think that's all important. Right now, it's kind of wide receiver land. We saw some quarterbacks throw as well. And then we can start to update some of these rankings and see if anybody has shifted. If they do shift, it's going to be up a spot, down a spot. I will say that Chris Olave has been moving up in my rankings too. Chris Olave is somebody that ran fast, but he has just looked overall well in everything that he has been producing, or everything that he's been testing in. And so Chris Olave is definitely up. He's slowly moving up. If you watch my video from yesterday, Sky Moore, he is looking better and better. I mean, it's one of my favorite prospects coming up. Also, Christian Watson looks like a beast. I'm really excited to see. I'm hoping he keeps. I just hope he gets like drafted in the 3rd round. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to get drafted in the 2nd round, and it's going to bust some of my rookie, wants for him, because I feel like he's going to be a early 2nd round pick when it comes to rookie dynasty drafts, and I want him to be a late 2nd. There's going to be some players that it'll be interesting to see where they go in the NFL draft. Players like, I would say, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I was really high on, and then went to the 4th round, and he really moved down, and it actually gave me the opportunity to grab him versus other people that were grabbing Dwayne Eskridge and Tutu Atwell and Josh Palmer, because there is that kind of 3rd round dark line. And I've talked about that. The first 3 rounds, draft capital is going to be so important, but those first 3 rounds are so incredibly important when it comes to an NFL prospect. If a quarterback, for sure quarterback's round 1, but running back and wide receiver are the 2 positions that you need to have a player. There are not many that are 4th round and on. It's Tyreek Hill, it's Diggs. It is not much besides that. And so you get most of these rounds, 1, 2, and 3 players. Amon-Ra St. Brown might be that early 4th. He might be that oddball. And I really thought he was a late round 2, early round 3 talent by the latest. And I thought maybe you could even see him early 2nd if a team really, really fell in love with his tape. But apparently no one did. And so that's sometimes you just, again, I don't do this. I'm not a full-time scout. I don't sit there and have my input on into the teams. I've watched football for long enough, and I go through some of the analytics, and I give you my best opinion and best educated guesses. And I would say more times than not, I feel like I'm correct. And then there's some times that I get hurt a little bit. I'm trying to think of any late players I have really. I mean, DK Metcalf was probably the biggest one that I swung and missed on, because I thought he wasn't going to be much. And he ended up being a lot better wide receiver than most came out to be. And I was drawing for Juju for a while, too, because I was not a Juju fan. Did not like him coming out of USC. I thought he was way overrated. And he came out with Antonio Brown and just lit it up with Pittsburgh. And I was like, oh, my goodness, I am way incorrect. And my last person was probably Chase Claypool. And now looking back at it, I feel like I felt like some of the analytics I have now researched lately would have led me a little bit more towards Chase Claypool, but that is what happens. You have to continue to learn and develop and to continue to grow in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And there's some people that have been doing it for as long as I've been born. So there's that. So again, that's the graph. That's what we're looking at. We'll go through some running backs here in the next couple of days. Over the next probably week and a half, we're going to be going through a lot of rookie stuff. And we're going to be getting into that draft here in about a month. And I leave for Vegas on next Wednesday. So I just came back from Cancun, and now I'm going to Vegas. All right. Peace out.
Now turn up.